Hello, everybody. Good morning. This is it's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Got a kind of a lengthy agenda today, so I want to get everybody out as quick as we can. I would like to call this March 11th, 2025 TPO Technical Committee meeting to order. It looks like we've got a good crowd today, so we do have a quorum. There are a couple of newer faces today, so if you don't care, let's please do introductions. Start here with Mike.
Mike Conger, Knoxville TPO staff.
Craig Lipke, also TPO staff.
Don Walker with Blount County. I'm here for Chico Messer.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Jack Walls, Loudoun County, City of Loudoun.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning Staff.
Laura Smith, East Tennessee Development District.
James Temple, Sevier County Planning.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Daryl Smith, Town of Farragut.
Mario Mike. Roger Flynn, City of Oak Ridge.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Jill Snow, Knox County Engineering.
I'm Tom Claybo with City of Knoxville.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Amy Brooks, Knox County Planning.
Deanna Flincham, Knoxville Commuter Pool.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Pat Downs, Knoxville Area Transit.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton.
Troy Ebert, TDOT.
Karen Estes, Knox County CAC Transit.
Mike Patterson, Ethro Public Transit.
Tina Whitaker, Lakeway.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. Dallas, do we have any Zoom participants today?
We have Timothy from Stan Tech who will be joining us later.
Okay, thank you, Timothy. We do have a minor amendment to the agenda, which is the FHWA and TDOT updates. So the first item, number 2 on the agenda, is the approving the minutes from the February 11th, 2025 Technical Committee meeting. Is there any discussion about those prior to vote? Seeing none. Do I have a motion? Second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 3 is the fiscal year 23 to 26 TIP project cost overrun, and this will be presented by Mr. Craig Lebetke. Thanks. Craig.
Thank you, Jim. Back with some more cost overruns this month. Just one this time, and this is for a City of Knoxville project. As you see there, Middlebrook Pike ATMS expansion. This project getting closer to being ready to have notice to proceed to construction. So we have a final construction estimate, and this request does kind of plus that up so that we can proceed with that. That is a carryover. That is not a right-of-way. It's just construction phase this time that we're adding funds to. The fund request there that you see, just under $650,000 in CMAQ PM 2.5 funds to increase the construction phase this fiscal year to just over $3 million. That is a 21.9% increase to the total cost. Triggering this is that we're adding with the cost overrun, we're adding over $500,000 of TPO controlled funding to the project. There you see again the total construction cost, $3 million, and all phases cost about $3.5 million. If you break that down, again, there's that request that's being added. This would bring the fiscal 2025 reserve balance in the PM 2.5 CMAQ funds down to under $100,000. The remaining projected funds, if you go out to that additional year, would be $3.9 million. You may recall when we had a overrun for another city ATMS project last month that we were essentially holding $1 million of that fiscal 2025 reserve balance to be carried forward into next year. And this does reflect that kind of $1 million considered over. So technically the 2025 reserves balance is over $1 million right now. Just to kind of, so for full transparency, if something else came in, we could adjust that and not carry forward as much into fiscal 26 and would use more of our fiscal 26 funding, just to clarify that. The overall cost overrun summary that you see there, the one that is a couple up, the UT area project that has the $2.6 million that was added, that's the one that we were kind of going to go ahead and use $1 million of this year's balance that does go ahead and show that reflected numbers there. That's quite a lot going around there, so I will pause for a moment if any questions. And I know City of Knoxville staff is here also to speak to any specific project questions that you may have for the Middlebrook project itself. And if there are none, we do recommend approval of this cost overrun request within the program. That's what the overrun bucket is there for, so that we can move these projects forward.
Any questions? I did have one. Craig, is there you said there's a $3.9 million reserve? Is that what you were saying?
That would be the projected balance at fiscal '26, between what we anticipate to come to the area from that program and what we're, kind of have slated on the books right now. Of course, that's always a moving target as projects move around, but that's.
Does this body have a policy about maintaining a certain reserve?
That reserve is not, it is set up at the beginning of the tip cycle with a certain amount that we hold back, and then that number, ultimately we're drawing down on that number as we move through. We don't get to a point where we reserve $1 million just for the sake of having $1 million, because we want projects to go out the door. So in an ideal world, we would get to zero right at the end of the tip, and then we would fill that reserve bucket back up when we compose the fiscal constraint for the new tip that we're getting ready to set up right now. And that's a conversation that we've had as we've started to talk about the tip project call that we have open right now. Does that make sense?
No further discussion? Do I have a motion? Second? Anybody like to make a second? I'll make a second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 4 on the agenda is looks like similar item, fiscal year 23 to 26 tip amendment. Craig?
Yep.
Back up.
And this actually goes back to that project that we had a cost overrun for last month, where we were looking at shifting that $1 million carryover into next year. This is the city's signal project updates in the UT area. So this amendment is adding that $2.6 million in CMAQ funding that was approved as a cost overrun last month at this body. We had to consult with TDOT's Air Quality Office to make sure that they were comfortable with us projecting that carry forward of funds. As a general rule, they want to see CMAQ funds drawn down to zero every year, but they gave us permission to have some flexibility to do that. So now that we have that approval, we can make this amendment to the TIP to add the funds that were approved as a cost overrun with the last cycle. So there is a lot on this slide, but we're increasing right-of-way and construction costs, as well as that total project cost on this, shifting the schedule around just a little bit to reflect the funding projections as they are and the obligations that have occurred on this project. We've got NEPA and design in fiscal '24, right-of-way funds $425,000 being added in fiscal '25. Construction, a significant dollar figure that you see there, $2.1 million, or actually $2.2 million being added to fiscal '26 construction. And then the bottom line there, that $2.5 million in CMAQ is the original CMAQ award balance that was available for this project. The total project cost, about $5.6 million that you see there. And again, not quite ready yet for construction, but approaching that timeline. We're glad to see some of these projects moving forward. If there are no questions about the project, again, we've discussed the overrun last month, and this amendment would just kind of certify that project funding and get that programmed here. And we would recommend approval of the amendment as well as reaffirmation of the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process.
Thank you, Craig. Any further discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item's approved. Number 5 is PM 2 and 3 midpoint performance measures, and Mr. Conger.
Yes. Good morning. So before you today, we have another action involving federal highway performance measure targets. As you remember, last last month, I think it was, we did the safety targets. Today, we're talking about different areas of the performance measure tracking. So just as I have these slides as a reminder every time we talk about this came from the federal highway process back in the legislation for MAP 21 to tie directly their funding programs to performance measures and tie those to the 7 national goals that were set to provide accountability and transparency for the federal funding programs. So these are codified in federal law, and several of these different regulations laid out on this page here. These are organized into 3 major performance measure areas: PM1, PM2, and PM3. PM1 are the safety targets that we do annually, whereas PM2 and 3 are a 4-year performance period. And right now we're talking about a midpoint adjustment, which I'll talk about some more in a minute. Really today what we're covering are these ones highlighted in blue. The subpart E and F, measures to assess performance of the National Highway System and the freight movement, and then on-road emissions for CMAQ are the ones that are being adjusted. So the timelines, again, with these are 4-year performance period. We're in the second performance period that covers 2022 through 2025. And at the midpoint of those, TDOT's allowed to review their 4-year targets and see if they might need adjustment based on the current trends. So this is included in your packet. There's a full midpoint performance period report in there that covers all of the target areas, pavement, bridge, and these National Highway System reliability measures, kind of talking about where we're at in the midpoint and what's affecting their target values. So on the bridge and pavement side for PM2, TDOT decided not to change any of their 4-year targets. So that's the second to last column is the current 4-year target. However, for PM3 and PM3 is broken out separately again. There's reliability and there's emissions. So they've adjusted all of those targets. I'll show some trends for the reliability targets. I'm not going to go into the emissions targets shown in the last section of this chart. These are literally just adding up the total emission reductions that we're projecting for any project funded with CMAQ funds. As you know, when you propose a CMAQ project, you have to submit an analysis of what you think that project will affect emissions, how much they will reduce those pollutants that we're subject to for oxides of nitrogen, volatile organic compounds, or PM2.5. So as everyone knows, the CMAQ funding is kind of slowed to a trickle at the state level as TDOT's trying to get some of those backlog projects funded. So they haven't actually done a call for projects at the statewide level in a couple of years. Of course, we do have the PM2.5 funds coming to our area, but basically this is reflecting the fact that not very many CMAQ projects have been funded lately. So we've recalculated those emissions, what we think will be occurring by 2025. So that's the bottom part. The other targets I'll talk about here, just the trends. I guess I should have circled that there. So first of all, one is travel time reliability on the National Highway System, both interstates and then non-interstates. This slide is first showing the interstate level of travel time reliability, and this is a statewide measure. So the baseline is the 2021 value at 92.1% reliable. Midpoint was 89%. As TDOT was reviewing this in the middle of 2024, looking at that data trend, and you see it going down, the value for 2024 was 86.7%. They decided they needed to adjust their target down from what was 88.2 down to 87.0. So it looks like we're on the trend to not meet that target if based on what 2025 holds. So that's kind of what their process was. On the non-interstate National Highway System, so this is roads like Alcoa Highway or Kingston Pike, major arterials. This really has no discernible trend on this data, kind of up and down. So they set the same target level of 87.0 you see there, but actually 2024 was better than 2023. I'm not sure I can explain all the reasons why. So again, it's kind of hard to project what's going on with that data there. Finally, there's the truck travel time reliability for the freight side of things. Statewide numbers again here. we've been seeing increasing, whereas the last one, higher number is a better, that means there's more reliable. This is actually the opposite. So higher numbers mean less reliable. Basically, the travel time delta is different for those extreme congestion events is what this is telling us. And we've seen, a lot of, obviously the state of Tennessee is a major freight corridor, 552 million tons of freight moved through Tennessee in 2022, and that's expected to increase moving forward. And there's major construction projects, mainly the one, again, statewide. There's the big interchange down in Chattanooga that's been under construction for a while, and there was projects in Memphis with the bridge. So that's kind of affecting these targets. So they reset that target from the previous 1.37 up to 1.55. That looks like it may be too conservative based on the trend. Hopefully, we're at 1.42 for 2024, but it remains to be seen. So that's a quick overview. Again, these were set by TDOT and just adjusted the statewide target, which we supported the original target. So we're just asking to reconfirm that support for the adjusted targets they have under those measures. And then we'll be done with performance measures for a little while here. So any questions? If not, we do need a motion to approve the resolution or recommend approval of the resolution by the executive board.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item's approved. Item number 6 is Public Transit Asset Management and Safety Plan Targets, and this will be presented by Jonah. Thank you, Jonah.
Morning. So I'm going over 2 sets of targets for y'all today. It's not on this slide, but this will be an action item requiring a motion for approval. All right, so the first one is the Transit Asset Management Plan, or TAM. TAM is a strategic approach to managing transit assets. Basically, we are just trying to keep all of our assets in a state of good repair, which is just the condition an asset is able to operate at the full level of performance and it doesn't pose any unacceptable risks. While we're not able to go and analyze all of the assets ourselves to make sure they're in good working order, we instead just use the useful life benchmark, which is just the expected life cycle of an asset. Those numbers are set but not mandated by the FTA. And we basically just go by the age of the vehicle. So if the age of the vehicle is past the useful life benchmark, we basically just say it's no longer in a state of good repair. The TPO has previously set a goal of keeping no less than 90% of the rolling stock or assets in a state of good repair. And while these targets are a tool for TPO and local transit operators, there are no penalties for not meeting them. So this is the target table. On the far left-hand side, you can see the type of asset. So we have buses, trolleys, cutaway vans. If you've ever seen an ETHRA bus, like the shuttle bus, they pretty much exclusively have cutaway vans. And then you have transit vans. Those are like the high top Ford transit vans. And then you have your standard minivan. The exact numbers aren't really that important, but you can see at the far right-hand side, the percent of vehicles in our state of good repair backlog are all exceeding our 10% target. You can look at the full table in your agenda packet if you'd like. So some reasons that we might be over our goal right now. Like I said, ULB and age are just used as proxies for a state of good repair. So the actual usage of an asset may be lower than an agency expected. So it may exceed the ULB and still be in a state of good repair. The transit vehicle industry is also still in recovery from COVID. There were a lot of supply chain issues and backlogs getting vehicles out during that time, and also rising inflation. Vehicles just cost way more than they used to. And then several agencies do have new vehicles on order which should bring these numbers closer in line with the specified targets. All right, so that's the TAM plan. Now we have the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plans, or the PTASP. Transit operators are required by the FTA to develop and adopt a Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. These establish the processes and procedures to support the implementation of safety management systems, and they must include safety performance targets. And the MPO, we will integrate these targets into our planning documents, including the upcoming mobility plan and the CIP. Again, there are no penalties if the target is not met. And here you can see it broken down by agency and also the type of service that they provide. So CAT has both fixed route buses and also demand response. CAC is just demand response, and then ETHRA also has both types of transit. And then you have fatalities, fatality rate, injuries, injury rate, safety events and event rate, and then also mechanical failures. And all of these rates are per 100,000 vehicle revenue miles driven. And again, you can see the full table included in your agenda packet. So pretty straightforward. If there are any questions or comments, be happy to answer them. Yeah.
It says ETHRA bus and demand. Is there a fixed route bus that ETHRA is running?
There is in the city of Morristown, we have a fixed route.
Really? Yeah. I was not aware of that. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jonah. Number 7 is the Mobility Plan 2050 update, and looks like Tim online will be presenting this.
Let me just introduce this real quick, make sure Timothy can hear us and we can hear him. Go ahead.
I can hear you. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yep, loud and clear. So everybody knows this item we've been presenting every month for the last year and a half or so. We're hitting the home stretch here, so Timothy has the latest update for y'all, so I'll just run the slides for him and tell me when to change it. So I'll take it away, Timothy.
Terrific. Thanks, Mike. And so the schedule, yes, we are here at the finish line. We've accomplished a lot. The last few items there is to get FHWA review comments, get public review comments, and go to plan adoption. So we are right there at the finish line. Next slide. You've probably seen this slide a few more times. It's just a good reminder to everyone of our outreach process. We need you to help communicate it with others as well. We had a project website that helped kind of guide everything and kick off the online survey, which had almost 800 participants, the interactive map, which had more than 500 points added individually, some focus group sessions and discussions, really different types of formats there, and then 2 different rounds of community events. Round 1 was February of last year. We did it in 3 different locations, one of which was virtual. And then round 2 was more recently in October. Again, 3 different locations, one of them virtual. Had plenty of participation and great feedback at those events as well. Next slide, just a photo of first round. A reminder, if you were there, you enjoyed speaking with us and filling out your vision statement, just like that gentleman in the middle. And then next slide for round 2. Very similar. We had a very, very captive audience there, people who were early voting, who then also came over to kind of look at projects individually on maps, talk about how they would prefer some of them prioritized, and actually voted with their fake dollars into which categories of projects are more important than others to them. Next slide. So this all culminated in a project final list of more than 113 projects that rolled over from the previous MTP. I believe there was a good 40 projects that were constructed, removed, and kind of deprioritized off the list. We added 50 new projects to that total, and then there is the breakdown by project type or category, some of which, like roadway projects would include bicycle and pedestrian improvements as well. So it's a little misleading looking like there's so many roadway projects. They are multimodal roadway projects as well. What we really want to do today is demo two things. Number one is the ArcGIS Experience Builder, and those are a lot of words to just say it's a tool and a resource for you to utilize moving forward. There we go. It does have this reminder that it doesn't work well on your cell phone. That's all right. So this is an interface that many MPOs and TPOs are utilizing these days to kind of help explain the project for the public, but also allow them to interact with the projects to learn more about individual ones, but also, for technical staff to refer to on a regular basis. So this is the home screen or the starting point for the mobility plan. It gives a little bit of context on the left and talks a little bit more about the performance measures that Mike was just talking about on the right. So I don't want you to click through PM 1, 2, and 3, but you can explore safety data within the region on a map. You can explore the bridge conditions as well on a map and some travel time reliability segments on the map as well. More importantly for this purposes would be the horizon years. So Mike, if you could click on the horizon first 2030, there you go. And then the next one and the next one are right there as well. It basically looks at your funded projects through the 2030 horizon and allows you to kind of query and filter and look at each individual one. So in total, there are 45. It's a little bit over $500 million. And Mike, if you would click on the pie chart, one of those segments, it's filterable to show you just those types of projects within the region. Then you can go find what you're looking for in more detail. Now just click in that same spot and it will go back to all projects. It's more like turn on, turn off, right? Also on the left-hand side, if you want to look up an individual project by name, you can click on one of them. It will zoom to it. Pick a corridor if you don't mind. Yeah, so that's right there. That's an intersection project. And when you click an intersection project, it looks like a ring. That's much better. Now click on the actual line itself, and there should be a pop-up giving you a little bit more detail on that project itself. And that's pulling from that same table of information and just kind of concatenate them into a string of text about that project. So one at a time, you can kind of look up individual projects you want, or you can go back to the home button kind of in the upper left corner of that window, of the map window, and it brings you back to the full screen, all projects in the region. There you go. So you can explore the 2030 projects, the 2040 projects, the 2050 projects. Even the unfunded illustrative are included in there. There's no cost associated with them. There's a little bit less information, but it's a really great resource, again, to show the public a little bit about some of these projects, but really for technical staff to use on a weekly or monthly basis to refer to some of these projects. We are still kind of ironing out some of the glitches in this platform. There's always some weird coding issues and things like that. So there's a couple little loose ends here and there that we're still fixing. But we want it to be a really useful tool, not just for now, but for the next 3-4 years. I want to highlight the transportation systems button all the way to the right as well. Just a little bit more context on your priority populations, which will pop out to a viewer in and of itself. Also bicycle and pedestrian pieces. Well, that's an interesting way to do it.
I didn't want to click it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want?
If you do click it, yeah, go ahead and click it. It's a new tab, and then you just click back to this tab.
Okay.
But it allows you to explore the priority populations in the region, the overall score, and then you can look specifically at like housing or mobility. And so this is just showing your data that you already have, and you can slice it by jurisdiction at the top with the drop down, and then you can look at each of the individual scores that make up that overall priority score in total. Yeah, so if you want to average it all out, it kind of gives you a health rating of each one of those 4 categories on the right and the overall on the left. And depending upon the county or the city, it kind of the bars change pretty dramatically. But it's a really interesting way to to look at and to investigate and to utilize data that you already have. We just made it available here through the same package. So if you don't mind going back to the ARC experience, and again, there's similar for bicycle and transit, go back to the home mobility plan 2050 all the way to the left. And this is how you navigate. The top never really changes, so you can always go back and forth there. This is the experience tool. The other side of the equation is the public commenting on projects. So right above that, the submit a comment. This will open another new tab just for public comment period for this Mobility Plan 2050 projects. So this is a tool that's useful now for the next month or 2 months. It stores your public comments in a database, and then we have them. But after that, the button kind of goes to something else. It won't really be needed on the ARC experience after that point. So this is a short-term tool. You can scroll on the left side to a project you want to see. You can also filter if you know the name of it. I believe there's a search button option, or just zoom on the map and find the project you're interested in. We've tested just one of these, saying that's an interesting project, so it's just kind of a test public comment. But if you have a project of interest, you can click on it there. It pulls up just that project alone, gives you the project details, and then the very bottom button, there's a submit a comment. And all those comments get stored into this database so we understand what feedback we've been receiving. This will be a valuable tool to put out on the project website of saying we've launched the revised MTP. Here's the document. If you want to leave a comment, you can comment on individual projects using this tool right here. And so this will be kind of the way to receive specific project descriptions and details and feedback from the public. Mike, any other questions or comments or things we should demo here?
I think you covered everything so far. So we're really excited about this tool. We've been looking forward to having something like this built. So it's a living thing that we can keep adding on to as we move forward, and new data. The big key with these is always keeping the data current as well for the targets and the other things. Of course, the projects shouldn't change, but anyway, so we're excited. Hopefully you guys will be able to use this as well.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'd note is that we were able to access the TPO's ArcGIS Online account. So it's built on their side of the table. It's not built on the Stantec side. So it's yours. It's always yours. You know, as you revise data, it's easy to update. You don't have to go back through us again. Saves us a lot of time, saves you a lot of time. So really happy we could work that out and make that easiest for everyone. So I had one final slide to summarize. If you want to go back to good old PowerPoint.
Okay, that worked. Good. Oh, wait, this it, right?
Yep. So our final steps there, we're in the middle of FHWA review, which will be concurrent with public review, essentially all of March into early April. Stantec will make revisions and generate that final MTP document. And then we're looking at adoption Wednesday, April 23rd. So that's our finish line, and we are kind of 1 or 2 steps away from reaching that.
So I'll just point out that we may or may not push that adoption date one more week. We're looking into that. We had, depending on when we get the federal highway comments and giving ourselves a little bit more buffer time, there's actually 5 Wednesdays in April, so we might take that opportunity, but we'll let you guys know for sure. And of course, as Doug has mentioned in previous meetings, we do need everyone to show up at that meeting to get a quorum, have a good turnout like this meeting, and for the executive board, but we'll let you guys know about that. But any other questions for Timothy about where things stand?
When will this be up on our website so that they can look at it if they want to?
Yes.
Great. So,
yeah, go ahead.
So the draft MTP is ready for just that. So I think we can begin that public comment period whenever you feel ready to do so. I know you were trying to do concurrent with the air quality conformity, and that was around this time. So you've got a 30-day review period, and you have about 5 weeks left. So there's even more flexibility there if you want to get it up there real soon this week or even start of next week. You're ready to put the draft MTP document there for sure.
So as soon as it's up on our website, we'll send an email out to y'all so you can take a look at it also, and please feel free to provide any comment back to us.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is, certainly, Doug, is the link to the website, and then specifically that comment tool, which launches from, the Experience Builder. We have to include it or embed that link with it as well. Say this is the portal to submit comments on projects. I believe there's also a default email address for just general comments that aren't project specific. So there's at least two different ways to submit comments, and it might be helpful for us really to clear, as we are saying, with the public, here's the document and here's one way to comment, email address, and here's a second form of commenting specifically on projects, and make those links very clear.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Timothy and TPO staff. It's been a lot of work, so I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. This is a really good product. And seeing no other questions, we'll move on to the next item, number 8, the City of Knoxville Vision Zero updates. Looks like Mr. Cody Gentry will be doing this. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah, I'll say a quick introduction to appreciate Cody coming to our meeting today. As you recall, last month we adopted local safety targets, and the original plan was to have Cody come to that meeting and tie in with that, with all the great efforts that the city's working on the Vision Zero initiative, and so I'll let Cody talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for having me here today. Like I said, I'm Cody Gentry. I am the Vision Zero coordinator for the City of Knoxville. I've been in this position about a year now. I'm going to give a little bit of a background and kind of a general overview of Vision Zero, what it is, how we got here to this point, and then give a little information on a few of the larger projects that we have going on. So first and foremost, what is Vision Zero? Mike kind of touched on, I know last month you talked about some of the safety targets statewide that TDOT recommended, and you all have adopted some lower target numbers for fatalities. So that's kind of getting at the core of what Vision Zero is. And when you boil it down, Vision Zero at its core is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries. So within the City of Knoxville, we have committed to a goal of 0 deaths on city-controlled roads by 2040. So like I said, you all just recently adopted some lower targets than what TDOT had, identified as their standards. So I applaud you for going for the, lower numbers. But even within the city, our numbers, our goal is even lower than that. We have the ultimate goal of 0. So, we're 1 death is too many as far as we are concerned with the city. So Vision Zero, one thing it is not a slogan. It is not an aspirational goal. I think a lot of times you may hear things like this and think maybe you're just saying, 0 deaths is what we want, but we will take any reduction. We will take that. And obviously we want any reduction we can get, but even 1 single death, if we got down to 1 death in a year, that's 1 death too many. We're not happy with only 1. So our work's not done until it's 0. So in Vision Zero, safety is prioritized over everything else. And I think for a long time, we've always said that, safety is number 1 goal, safety is the number 1 priority. But this is really just a reimagining. This is a paradigm shift to where we are prioritizing safety. If first and foremost, if any project we do, we have to ask ourselves the question, how does this improve safety on city roadways? How does this lower fatality numbers? And if it doesn't do that, that's not meeting our goal. So that is the driving force behind everything we are doing. So a little bit of background. In 2021, City Council at the city unanimously endorsed a Vision Zero goal. I think it's important to point out that unanimous part there. It takes, I think, a lot of courage locally and politically to endorse that goal. I think there's typically some hesitation. I think everybody, if you ask, I think everybody's on board with no fatalities. We want to lower that number. But I think there's sometimes some hesitation to tie yourself to a year and a number, because I think a lot of times people are afraid of that failure, that if you don't get there. So I think it takes courage, and I always like to take the time to applaud our mayor, applaud our city council for setting that goal, setting that year, and saying that's what we're going for. The next year in 2022, we launched the planning stages. So the biggest part of that was we formed the Vision Zero Steering Committee. There are a few people in this room that were part of that committee. It was made up of several city staff, but also some external partners from TPOt, from the Knox County Health Department, TPO staff, University of Tennessee, as well as some local advocacy groups like Bike Walk Knoxville played an integral part of that. So that steering committee met for about a year and a half and worked on the Vision Zero action plan to help develop that. That was released. It was finalized and adopted in June of 23. So they worked for about a year and a half to develop that plan. I'll go into some of the details of that plan in just a moment. One of the recommended actions in that plan was to hire a full-time Vision Zero coordinator to sort of oversee and guide the efforts identified in that plan. I came on board, like I said, about a year ago. So I started in 2024, and now at this point, 15 years left to get us to zero. So now it's just about doing the work from now on. So the action plan, a few things that are in this action plan. This action plan is available on the city's website. So it's available if you want to look it up. If you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to send it to you. You all are probably familiar with the TPO's Regional Safety Action Plan. It's very similar to this. This is just more of a zoomed in version specific to the city, but a lot of the same information. We identified a high injury network, which I'll show in just a moment, as well as some crash profiles and countermeasures. That is 6 specific crash types that we're seeing most often in the city. Those are things like roadway departures at nighttime, maybe angle crashes near commercial entrances or signalized intersections, those type of things. And it also identified countermeasures, things to do to lower the severity or prevent those type of crashes from happening in the future. It also identified our action plan framework. That is really the action items. So it's 30 strategies, 30 things to do to get us to zero. And finally, it identified a few priority locations and funding opportunities for us to proceed with. So the high injury network, here is a snapshot of that. So this is the where of the action plan. This is where we are having the most serious crashes happen. And you can see that graph, 5% of our non-interstate roadways account for 63% of life-altering crashes. Those life-altering crashes are your serious injury or fatal crashes. So like I said, this is the where. This is showing us where we have the problems. This is where we have crashes happening, where we need to focus our efforts. So rather than just going into this blind, we have the data showing here's where we have documented problems. Here's where we need to focus our efforts. Like I said, you all have the regional safety plans very similar to this, just looking at a broader picture. But here we have the Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1's the highest 20%. That's the most serious areas. Not a huge surprise. A lot of it's the busiest corridors in the city. It's the arterial state routes like Chapman Highway, Middlebrook, Kingston Pike, Clinton Highway, Western, Broadway, Magnolia. Those make up a big portion of that, but there are also, a few segments of local city streets involved there too. So is Vision Zero even possible? In 2023, we had 36 total fatalities in the city. That was 26 on state routes, 10 on city streets. We're still pulling together all of the numbers for 2024. It's down slightly. Looks like the numbers are around 32 for 2024. So we're down slightly, but 32, obviously, that's much, much too high of a number. So when you look at that, you might say, is Vision Zero even possible? I said it was not an aspirational goal. So how do we even do this? So yes, Vision Zero is absolutely possible. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't have accepted this job. I wouldn't be here today. This is not a utopian vision. Not only is it possible, but it is happening. It's happening here in the U.S. There are other cities that are already achieving this. So We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's already happening. Other places are doing it. So we can do it as well. A few examples. Hoboken, New Jersey, they are sort of the shining star of the Vision Zero movement. I haven't updated this slide, but as far as I know, you can add 2024 to that. So they are going on several years now. Not only have they reached 0 deaths on their streets, but they have maintained it for a considerable amount of time. Nearby, Jersey City, New Jersey, they reached 0 deaths in 2022. And Alexandria, Virginia, which is just outside of DC, they reached it in 2023. So seeing that these are not cities that nobody's ever heard of, these are not really small places, seeing that these cities can do it, I think that's the blueprint that it is achievable. It's achievable here in the US. So there's no reason that Knoxville cannot join that list. So how do we do it? Like I said at the beginning, this is really a paradigm shift in how we approach traffic safety, how we look at crashes, how we think about them, just a complete reimagining of how we approach that. So we have the traditional approach of how we've done it for decades versus the Vision Zero approach. So I'm going to go through a few options here, or a few examples. First off, traditionally we've said traffic deaths are inevitable. There's a certain number that we can just count on. We're going to have X number of traffic deaths every year. So when we look at that in the Vision Zero lens, we reject that and say every single traffic death is preventable. The only acceptable number here is 0. And today when I'm talking, you're going to hear me, I will only refer to them as crashes. I won't call them accidents, because accidents is sort of, when we refer to it in that way, when I talk about that paradigm shift, if we talk about it and refer to these as accidents, that implies that there's nothing we can do to control it. It implies that these aren't preventable, that it's just sort of a thing that happens and we just have to deal with it. So we look at this, every single traffic crash is preventable. There's something we can do to prevent every one of these. So previously, we have planned on perfect human behavior. If everybody drives perfectly, if everybody does everything they're supposed to, we'll have no problems, we'll have no crashes, and everything works. But we all know that's not the case. We are dealing with human behavior. Humans aren't perfect. None of us in this room drive perfectly. So we have to integrate that human failing in the approach. We have to know that everybody's not going to drive perfectly. There are going to be mistakes made, and plan for those. Integrate that in the approach. An example I like to give is build some redundancy into the system that we're putting drivers in. So if we know we're having roadway departure crashes, build some redundancies in that so that maybe we install improved street lighting so that you can see a little better. Maybe there are rumble stripes on the edge lines to kind of guide you back on the road. And then last chance, you have a guardrail. So there's multiple layers there to prevent these crashes from happening. Previously, we've just looked at broadly preventing collisions. We don't want any collisions to happen at all. So with Vision Zero, we're really kind of triaging that and looking at the most serious ones, and we just want to prevent the fatal and severe crashes. So if we have an intersection that we see fatal and severe crashes are occurring, and we make improvements at that intersection, so that same crash might occur the next year, but the severity is much less. So that crash that landed you in the hospital, had a serious injury or a fatality, the same type of crash might happen the next year, but it results in just a trip to the body shop and you're going home to your family that night. That's the goal there. So we're just triaging that. If we can lower that severity, treat the most serious parts of these crashes first and foremost. Previously, we had put a lot on the individual. This kind of goes back to that perfect human behavior portion. It was the individual's responsibility. So an example, oftentimes if we have a pedestrian-related crash, a vehicle that hit a pedestrian, we might say, well, maybe that pedestrian wasn't crossing in the crosswalk. They weren't crossing when the walk sign was on, or they weren't wearing brightly colored clothing, or any of those things. We like to say it's on them. Now we need to look at this as a systems approach. What is the transportation system that we are putting these people in? So if we stick with that example of a pedestrian, maybe they weren't crossing in a crosswalk, but if you zoom out and look at where they are at, where is the nearest crosswalk? Are we asking that pedestrian if they are standing on one side of the road, they want to cross? Are we asking them to walk a quarter of a mile down the road, cross a 70-foot wide street, and then double back a quarter of a mile? That's not exactly realistic, and we know they're not going to do that. So looking at that system, making sure that system matches the public's needs, that's a big part of this, is making sure we see what the human element of this, what they're doing, making sure that transportation system matches their needs. And then finally, we have said, this is all great, but previously we've said, these projects, and you all know very well, these projects get very expensive. Talking multiple millions of dollars to do these big projects, and they're indeed expensive. But saving lives does not have to be expensive. These big projects do cost a lot of money, but there are improvements we can make with low-cost materials that don't involve years-long construction projects. We can make those improvements in the interim until we get that permanent solution. So a lot of this is looking into those options, finding what can we get on the ground as quick as possible that's going to save lives now. A few of the projects that we have going on, I'm just going to hit on a couple of the larger ones. These are a couple of federal grant projects. In 2023, we received our first Safe Streets and Roads for All. We shortened that to SS4A. We received our first one in 2023. That was a total of $10 million. That was at $8 million federal with $2 million local match. It involves several planning projects listed there. But the sort of big money items there are the construction projects. We have Magnolia Avenue improvements. We have some pedestrian upgrades on Magnolia Avenue at 3 separate intersections. And that is, we're currently in the process of that, working on that now, as well as Broadway Streetscapes project, which this map here shows these last two. The Broadway Streetscapes project builds sort of a missing link of a greenway portion there in front of Kroger on Broadway. It connects, we have First Creek Greenway, and then it kind of rejoins up next to Fulton High School. This is sort of a missing link there. And in that missing link, we have the busiest cat stop in the city. So a lot of pedestrian activity. You can kind of see a snapshot of a few of the crashes there. So making some multimodal improvements, building a shared use path there for pedestrians to use, again, creating that missing link, as well as some crosswalk enhancements, some streetscape enhancements. And then it will join in with the Woodland Avenue Complete Streets project to the north there. That will continue some of those multimodal improvements, complete a road diet, install some sidewalks, some crossings to get people over to Fulton High School, to the new safety complex where Knoxville Police, Knoxville Fire, where they are located. And earlier I mentioned in the Vision Zero Action Plan how it identified a handful of priority locations. That's these 3 locations. So we identified in the action plan a few locations. We applied for that with the first round of this SS4A. Those were those 3 priority locations, and we received funding for that. So the next year, we applied again for a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, this time a much bigger one, a total of $10 million that first year. This one was a total of over $22 million. Again, a handful of planning projects there. But the big one is a construction project on Chapman Highway. This is from Blunt to Fort Dickerson, and it will create a shared use path along the west side of Chapman Highway. We have had a history of a lot of fatal crashes, injury crashes along Chapman Highway. There's some inconsistent pedestrian network there. We have a lot of pedestrian involved crashes in that segment. So this will have a separated shared use path on that segment of Chapman Highway, so you'll be able to travel all the way from Henley Street Bridge downtown all the way to Fort Dickerson Park, separated from traffic, outside of traffic, safely out, as well as it'll construct a landscape median. So the center of Chapman Highway, we've had a 2-way turn lane, we've had a lot of head-on collisions, especially a lot of left turn crashes involving driveways and some access management. This would install landscaped median there to help prevent some of those, help control some of the access. So those are a few of the bigger projects. But like I said, we're also looking at plenty of other, I don't have any slides today to show, but plenty of other things that are low cost that we can get on the ground as quick as possible. Because like you all know, a lot of these projects take many, many years to get on the ground, and this is sort of a, I like to say this is a public health emergency. We're having 36, 32 people die a year. So it's trying to get things on the ground as quick as possible until we can get some of these bigger projects on the ground. So that's all I have, and I guess I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Thank you, Cody.
Yeah.
Any questions for Cody? Tina, we appreciate your presentation there. Very good work. Thanks, sir. Oh,
Can we get a copy, or
Sure.
can you share it? Or?
Yeah, I've sent it to Mike, so I'm sure it can be shared. Sure.
well, thank you, Cody. Very good information. Number 9 is other business. We did have an addition here, FHWA and TDOT updates. Any updates from our partners?
I only had one update that y'all be very interested in. Talked to Sean yesterday, and we were having, with everything going on with the federal government, our TIP amendments were having to go through and be looked at. That's not happening anymore. Federal Highway is able to do it in-house. They don't have to send it on up to headquarters and back and forth and all that for the extra reviews. So we're back to where we were originally as far as speed and everything. So that was really happy to hear about that.
Thank you, Troy. Go ahead, Doug.
Just as on your agenda, the executive board meeting is on March 26, 2025, and then the next technical committee will be April 8th. And then, as Mike said, we might, I guess we didn't update that, so it's in your agenda. We might move the April executive board. So I know some of you attend in place of your mayor, so we'll definitely keep you updated. It is, as I mentioned last time, and I'm going to probably mention this the next few meetings, we are beginning to work on our TPO work program. So if you have any planning studies you're interested in, reach out. I know some of you have contacted me. We will get back with you. We're trying to get the mobility plan across the goal line here, and once we get that up for public comment, then we'll turn our attention to the work program and get back with you on the projects that you've kind of asked if they could qualify. The other thing is, we've mentioned this several times before, the household survey, those letters will start going out to the public at the end of the month. So just a reminder, if you do get calls on those about, hey, what is this travel survey? We'll have some information up on our website you can send them to, or you can have them contact us. So we appreciate any support to let people know that is a legitimate survey, and we need as many responses as possible. That's all I had under other business, and I think Craig has one there.
Yep, real quickly, also speaking of mobility plan, as you know, we're also moving into that next tip cycle. We've had the project call. Everybody has submitted their items with one exception that I'm working on following up on somebody on. So thank everybody for being responsive to that. We're gathering those. You'll probably be hearing from me with potential questions I may have with applications. We'll have a summary update of what came in last time. I have no doubt that we're going to have more asks than we're going to have money to be able to program to projects. So kind of prepare yourselves for that conversation. We'll have to be making some decisions on what projects we can fund and what we can't, and perhaps the timeline of projects, looking at schedules more critically, may be able to allow us to program that. So just want to thank everybody for that, and be on the lookout for more feedback from me on your applications and rollover projects.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody other agency updates? Seeing none. Do we have anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Nobody virtually either? Okay. Well, with that, we have item 11, adjournment. Do I have a motion? All right, we're adjourned.